I'll tell you one thing that every good soldier knows. The only thing that counts in the end is power. Naked, merciless force! The only good human is a dead human!
Welcome to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today I am back with another top 5 for you all, and it is one of the most highly requested ones that I have gotten on this channel. Today I will be counting down my top 5 favorite villains of the Planet of the Apes franchise. Over the 10 films that have come out of this franchise, we've gotten over a dozen different villain characters, some major, some minor, some really good ones, and some not so good ones, but I am here to tell you all just who the best of them are. And of course, these are just my opinions. If you don't agree with me, that's totally cool. Again, as always, keep it civil and let me know what your top 5 favorite villains of the franchise are down below. Before I get into the top 5, I just want to give a quick couple of honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is from 2001's Planet of the Apes, and that is General Thade. I really like this character. I think he's underrated in a way, and I love the makeup design. I think Tim Roth is fantastic, but just wasn't good enough to crack the top 5. And the same goes for Governor Breck from Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, who I think is a fun character, who I think is an entertaining villain, who I think does his job well as a villain, but he's just a little cartoony and a little too one note for me to put him in the top 5, but I still respect him and I still enjoy him, so that is why he is in the honorable mentions. And now moving on to the top 5 and kicking things off with number 5 from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is Proximus Caesar. This is obviously the most recent villain from the most recent addition to the franchise, but I really loved this character when I saw him. He is so menacing while also being really charismatic, and something I really appreciate is that he's not presented as this cold-blooded or evil villain, but he also has no problem letting apes die if needed. So he has this presentation of, oh, I'm a good guy, I'm not such a bad guy, but he does pretty bad guy things, and he believes and claims he is doing good for apes, but really he's just interested in his own selfish desires to evolve and to rule.
Say his words! Say his words! What a wonderful day!
Something that's also really fascinating about him that I really love, and it's kind of been the biggest talking point about him, is how he takes inspiration from human history, as well as the history that we've already seen in the Caesar trilogy with the character of Caesar and what his teachings were, and he twists it for his own gain. And it's something that really makes him similar to famous dictators and rulers throughout our own human history, and it also adds a really fascinating and fresh character to the mix in the pantheon of Planet of the Apes villains. So I think he's a really fascinating character. I think he's a really exciting character. I think he's in a lot of ways a really fun character. I only wish he was in the movie more, but from what we got, I really loved him, and that is why he is number 5. Coming in at number 4 from War for the Planet of the Apes is the Colonel. I think the Colonel is a really great villain who doesn't get talked about quite enough, or at least not put on the same pedestal as some of the other villains, but I think he deserves to be, because I really enjoy this character a lot. He's so ruthless and terrifying from the second he appears on screen in the beginning of the movie until you see him again halfway through later on, and he has such a swagger and charisma that makes it hard to take your eyes off of him, especially when he's talking.
Do you have any idea what your mercy would do to us? You're much stronger than we are. You're smart as hell. No matter what you say, you'd eventually replace us. That's the law of nature.
He models himself similar to Proximus Caesar after famous historical tyrants, and he believes that he's helping humanity even when he's killing other humans to do so. He believes himself the true savior and future of humans, and that he is all-knowing and that he embodies what real strength looks like, which just makes him all the more terrifying, especially being the fact that he is the human leader. He's also just such a worthy adversary for Caesar in the third movie in the Caesar trilogy, and he's the character that's able to push Caesar to his limits and test his morals, and he's able to bring Caesar to the lowest point in his life and in the entire trilogy. And so for that reason alone, I think he is worthy to be on this list. He's a fantastic character, he's a great villain, and that is why he is number 4. Coming in at number 3 from the original Planet of the Apes. Some people would probably put this character a little higher, but for me he is number 3, and that is Dr. Zaius. He is, of course, one of film and one of Hollywood's most iconic characters of all time. And something I really love about him is that he believes in his actions. He believes that he is doing what is best for preserving ape kind, despite knowing that he is hiding the truth in order to maintain the status quo. He's also a really brilliant parallel to real-world politicians and real-world leaders who push religion and militarization over science and reason for their own personal agenda, whatever that may be.
Your case was preordained. In a way, you did the state a service, because you made it possible for us to expose Zira and Cornelius. Now the tribunal has placed you in my custody for final disposition.
Something I also love about him, that I've always loved about him, and it's what makes a lot of people say, I don't consider him a villain, and I think this is the reason why, is that he's not presented as a villain. And I think it's a very smart choice that they made with this character. He's just presented as another character in this story. But when you look at his actions and his ideologies and what he ultimately does and what his ultimate goals are, it makes it pretty clear that he is the antagonist of this story, and it's very much villainous intentions that he has with what he's ultimately trying to do. And so I really love this character. He is an all-time classic. He's not quite my number one or even number two, but I do respect him. I admire him, and without this character, we wouldn't have some of the best moments in the entire franchise. We wouldn't have some of the social political commentary that has made this franchise so unique and stand out for so many years. So for that reason and many others, I think he is completely deserving to be on this list, and that is why he is at number 3. Coming in at number 2 on this list, from the third film in the original series, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, and that would be Dr. Hasslein. I love this character. I've already gushed about this character a lot when I did my review for that movie, so a lot of you already know how much I like this character, but I cannot stress enough just how much I love this character. He is, I think, actually the most underrated villain in the entire franchise. He's so compelling in his arguments, enough to the point that a viewer can actually understand and maybe even agree with his point of view with what he's trying to do in that movie. When he's trying to preserve humanity, he's trying to keep human civilization from falling apart, and he's not coming at it from a place of evil or even cruelty. He's coming at it from a place of, he just wants to make sure the human race doesn't die out. And when you actually listen to what he's saying and his points, he makes a lot of sense. And what I also love is that he's so charismatic and he's so grounded in his arguments, despite the fact that he does take them too far ultimately by the end of the movie and he lets them drive him to cruelty. He is still a very charismatic and understandable character, and that's part of what I love about him so much.
Do you want them and their progeny to dominate the world, Mr. President?
Well, not at the next election, no. But one day, if the progeny turn out as well as the parents, who knows? They may do a better job of it than we have.
By destroying the world?
Are you quite sure that what they saw destroyed was the world?
But aren't you?
He really just believes that what he is doing is best for human survival. He believes in his own cause to the point that he really is the hero of his own story. You could absolutely tell this entire story from his perspective, and he would be the protagonist and you would actually understand his point of view. And so I think that, along with several other reasons, is what makes him one of the best villains in the franchise and why he is number 2 on this list. And finally, coming in at number 1, the best villain in the entire Planet of the Apes franchise, and it's not going to be a surprise to pretty much anybody who has seen the movies, is of course from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and that would be Koba. Koba is pretty much the unanimous favorite villain from everybody in the entire fanbase. I think it's pretty hard to argue against Koba being the best villain in the Planet of the Apes franchise. First of all, he's just a very completely empathetic character, and his actions and beliefs, for the most part, are pretty justifiable when you look at what he's been through. He has the most emotionally resonant backstory of any villain, and honestly of a lot of characters, if not most characters in the entire franchise. He's a character who at one point was tortured by humans. He was experimented on. He was someone who at one point was living his life or was raised in captivity and eventually became a lab rat, being poked and prodded and having chemicals pumped into him all the time, and he's scarred. And so you understand why he is the way he is. You understand why he has this resentment towards humans, and you kind of, to a point, are on his side when you see what he's been through and you look at how he's turned out.
Human. What? Human. What? Human. What? Human work.
the relationship between him and Caesar that ultimately breaks down, that takes him to another level of tragic villain that you wish could have stayed good. You wish him and Caesar could have stayed brothers, could have stayed friends, and you don't want to see them fall apart, but they do, and it makes it a really tragic story. He's equally as sympathetic and charismatic as he is terrifying as well once his turn happens, because as much as you like him and as much as you're charmed by him in the first hour or so of the movie, once he takes that turn, he is scary and you are terrified of him and you do not know what he's going to do next because he's so unpredictable with his actions, and you're scared out of your mind about what he's going to do, who he's going to kill, how far is he going to take this whole thing. And it's a really well done spiral into madness in a way, and I think that's part of what makes him such a memorable and iconic character in this franchise. And by the end of the film, he has you not wanting him or Caesar to die, and you don't want that fight to happen. You don't want either one of them to win. You just want both of them to put their arguments aside, and you want there to be a way for him to be redeemed and for both of them to continue on this journey together. But of course, that's just not possible. And so I think that, along with all the other reasons I listed, are what make Koba easily, in a series that already has a number of really fantastic villains, the number one, no question. He is a fantastic character. He's an incredible villain, and that is why he is number one on this list. So guys, those were my top 5 favorite villains in the Planet of the Apes franchise. I want to know what you think of my list. Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know your top 5, or just rank the entire roster of Planet of the Apes villains in general if you'd like. But I want to know what your thoughts and who your favorite villains are down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you could stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.